rest of the features that can be seen more when we zoom on them. The other important thing is that I told you that foreign antigens cannot meet the lymphocytes, either the B lymphocytes or the T lymphocytes here in the thymus, before they reach the final stage of the development that we call immunocompetency. So how can it happen that the blood has to flow through, the tissue needs nutrients? How is it possible that the antigens do not meet the developing T cells? It happens through the development of the blood-thymic barrier. What is the blood-thymic barrier? It is these epithelial reticular cells not only form the stroma and these nests, but they also form a barrier around the small blood vessels and capillaries, and they inhibit the antigens to get out, to be filtered out into the thymus. And that is what we call the blood-thymic barrier. So again, we have only one section, we will not see it, but imagine a capillary surrounded by these epithelial reticular cells, not allowing the filtration of antigens out into the thymus. Okay, that is very important. Let's go to higher magnification so we actually try to start to see something. And we are in the medulla of the thymus. And if I want to point out something, those Hassel's corpuscles are very small in this stage, but there is one right at the tip of the arrow. And I'm gonna move to the higher power and try to point out a couple of things if I can. Here, what do we see here is it is like the Hassel's corpuscle. Again, these are just concentric. This is a concentric organization of this old epithelial reticular cells. And again, this is the time when we actually have to go to the most of the demonstration is going to happen using the oil objective, so we actually see something.
I think it's like the kidneys, cortex and the medulla, inner and outer.
Okay, so we are in the medullary region of the thymic lobule. Here you see a little Hassel's corpuscle. Let me try to find a little bit better one. We will see, this is probably the best that I can show you here. This Hassel's corpuscle right here. And we will see much larger on the next section. So what I also can see here is a blood vessel. Okay, this is a blood vessel, and you see the red blood cells. They look somewhat greenish inside of it, and around it, these cells, if you look at them, these are the epithelial reticular cells which surround this blood vessel, and they form that barrier that we call the thymic blood barrier. And it's much harder to see in the rest of the tissue where there are much more lymphocytes. I'm trying to move out towards the cortex, and we are in the cortex. But you see here this very, very large number of lymphocytes. I also told you that there are macrophages, and up here, and I'm going to put this to the middle, there is a macrophage right here. Okay? The macrophages that phagocytose and remove the cells which are being eliminated based on their non-reactivity or hyperreactivity to self-antigens, right here. And the rest of these cells, these small cells, with the very dark nucleus are obviously the T cells at different stage of development. And again, if we move out, the least developed cells are out in the outer cortex, and as we go down, the cells should show the later developmental stage of the T lymphocytes. It is also kind of hard to pick out the connection between the stromal cells, the epithelial reticular cells, but here maybe there is the lighter nucleus, and if you imagine that this is the process of one cell going this way, okay? And this also has a process in this direction. But you see that there are cells everywhere. And again, whether this is a thymic nerve cell or not, on this thick section, you will not be responsible to pick out the thymic nerve cells, because some of these cells, the epithelial reticular cells, act as thymic nerve cells. If I had to guess, I would say, yeah, that cell looks like it's inside of that epithelial reticular cell, but I wouldn't, you know. It's just imagine that there are cells which contain lymphocytes inside their cytoplasm. Similar here, up here, there may be that's maybe a macrophage with debris in the cytoplasm. Just know that all these cells are around in this big in this big mass. Okay, to recognize these very fine structures, we used to have much thinner sections, so-called semi-thin sections, where you actually see much more structure, and electron microscopy helps a lot, and definitely staining for those specific markers. Again, a macrophage with lots of debris, and down here, macrophage with lots of debris. So this is what we see on this early thymus, that's from a young person, when